Folks, this is a 1-minute warning. Folks, it's 4 o'clock, and we need to call this meeting to order now, please. Okay, I'm going to call to order the legal committee meeting of the City of Roswell today, Thursday, June 25th, 2020 at 4 p.m. If we could have a roll call, please. Here.
Here.
Counselor Perry? Counselor Foster?
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. I believe Counselor Perry may be on the road right now, so he should be calling in. We'll see if that happens. Before I get into a lot, I'd like to ask everyone to please silence their phones, as well as be sure and turn on your mic when you're going to speak. Makes it much easier for everyone, so thank you very much for that. Can I get an approval of today's agenda, please?
Make a motion to approve the agenda for Thursday, June 25th, 2020.
Okay, thank you. Motion to second?
Second.
Great, we have a motion, a second. Any discussion on the agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. We'll go by the printed agenda today. We have the minutes from the May 28th, 2020 Legal Committee meeting. Can I have a motion on them, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from May 28th, 2020.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as written from the May 28th, 2020 Legal Committee meeting. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Those minutes will stand approved. Let's go into the regular items now. The first one is actually the minutes from the April 23rd Legal Committee meeting. It's sort of an addendum. Parker, do you want to explain what the situation is here, please?
So this one is a bit of a mea culpa. There was a boo-boo in those minutes. What happened, as you'll recall, at the April meeting was that we had two items, 2 and 3, which had to do with amending the airport ordinance. The discussion was that the second of those two was the zoning change, and so it had to go through P&Z before it could be considered. And so the action that ended up being taken was that item 2, the actual change to the airport ordinance, was approved for not the next council meeting, but the council meeting thereafter, so for the June meeting. And the zoning one was going to be sent back to P&Z in the meantime, so that it could all go to council at the same time. The minutes did not reflect that action was taken, and they just said that no action was taken, which was not correct. So you'll see in the packet that we've done red line changes and to reflect those corrections. And if you guys approve that, then we'll accept the red line changes and they'll be amended.
Thank you. Are there any questions on approving as amended the April 23rd, 2020 Legal Committee minutes as they're presented today with the red line? Could I then have a motion to adopt or approve these minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes April 23rd, 2020.
Okay. That is as corrected, I'm assuming. Okay, good. Thank you. Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the amended April 23rd, 2020 Legal Committee meeting minutes, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Now we have several items under the Air Center. So, Mark, there you are.
Thank you. I'm going to invite Isaac Sheets up. He is the president of General Airframe Support, and FIS is the holding company of that, and he's going to talk about the project for hangar expansion that is part of this land lease that we're talking about today.
Thank you.
Let's see. So if you turn to the second page, kind of shows you the completed hangar. It's going to have offices built, 2 levels of offices, training rooms, tool rooms. Originally, if you look on page 4, that was the original drawing. That's what we were supposed to have built to begin with. But that addition there, that's much higher, we just couldn't put that. It went over budget. So that whole building was supposed to be 1.5, but we only got to the first 12,500 square feet, and it was 1.5. Being a young company, I couldn't borrow that kind of money, so I paid cash for this. And this is going to put that addition on now, we're looking at about $1.6 million more. The square footage will be just a little over 23,000 square feet once it's completed. It's going to be 145 feet wide, and we're going to extend it out another 75 feet. That's going to assist in bringing in airplanes with winglets. We didn't anticipate that when we did the original drawing. Originally, we were actually going to put this hangar in Marana, Arizona, but we were doing business out here. Birdman sold to Cavu, so we wanted to stay here. I really enjoyed, the employees that we had. So rather than putting this hangar up in Marana, we decided to put it here. So that's and right now we're looking at a total investment in this airport with the first addition or the first building, the addition, and the scrap pad. We'll be investing over these last 3 years about $4 million into this airport of our own money. So that's why we're here to, and then I talked to Scott. I know our our blueprint's about little over 23,000 square feet, but I understand that there was a problem with maybe the amount of rent we're paying, so I asked him if he could just work up a quote on doing 30,000 square feet, a little bit bigger than the footprint, see if that would be a little bit more fair. But I just want to get us approved so we can get this project going. We're really on a time crunch to really take advantage of all these airplanes to be done by October. So the longer it takes, the more money we lose. So, and then plus, we were approved for JTIP, and I can't get anybody hired till we get this project completed. So I've got 16 people on hold right now until this project gets moving. I don't know if you guys have any questions.
Does any of the committee have questions of Mr. Sheets? Counselor Peters?
I just want to make a comment. I didn't have a problem with the last time, so I'm happy you want to do this in
Okay.
Roswell.
I appreciate it. I really do.
I need to explain a few things, I think. I'm the one that wanted it pulled from council's agenda last month and to go back to staff, which they've done, and they've done a great job of answering some concerns. So if I can bring attention to the committee's packet on page 20 of the packet and 5 of 11 of the actual agreement with FIS, you'll notice there are conditions of default. And that was one of the concerns, and there you are. I'm assuming you have read this and all is well. This is the same?
For the most part, yes.
Yeah.
Except
Okay.
for the term and the rate and the square
Right.
footage.
But with
Okay.
regard to the default and all that, that has not changed.
Okay, so that was one of my concerns, and then again, on page 7 of 11 or 22 of the packet, the use of the premises, that's what's changed. Is that right?
That's actually still the same as well.
Really? Okay. So, that is covered. The, somebody, Mark, maybe you talk about the original proposal to us was $348 a month, and now it is up to $550. Can you explain
Correct.
that?
That was based on the footprint of just the building expansion itself, the additional square footage that the hangar would take itself, which Isaac mentioned would be about 20,000 square feet. What we've done is we expanded that footprint to include areas around the building that would be used for parking of employees. So we now have that included within the land lease is space that they've paid for to park their employees.
Okay.
And,
So.
I'm sorry, I
Go
don't mean
ahead.
to interrupt. but I
Please,
just
go
wanna,
ahead.
Say that that change from the 19 to the 30,000 did not make it into the council's packet. Still says 19, and that
So-
is,
I'm sorry, so that's still
So-
in here. I knew something had
yeah, so we
changed.
would ask that that be amended on the property description on page 16 of the packet from 19 to 30,000, and then on the exhibit as well, exhibit, I think it's 1 or A, it says 19, it should say 30, and I apologize for that.
Okay, I appreciate that. Yes, that's on page 26 of the packet. It should say that the area of land consists of 30,000 square feet, plus or minus. Okay, that's where we were. Okay. All right, any other questions or comments from anyone on the agreement with FIS Company Incorporated? Okay, this would go on the consent agenda for the July 9th City Council meeting. If I could have a motion that includes those two changes.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
As I'm understanding it, Mr. Sheets, you need this sooner than later?
Well, I'm waiting on the bank too, with an SBA loan. He's got a little bit behind. But I have all my ducks in a row. I'm ready to pull the trigger.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. Can we have him speak into a mic?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Yeah,
Thank you.
there's, we're still waiting on the SBA portion of the loan to be approved. First American has already approved me for the whole loan, but I want to make sure the SBA is on board, which they should be. So we're waiting on that. They've been backed up for the PPP, but I have all my ducks in a row. I'm ready to pull the trigger on the steel. It's a 5-week lead time just to get the drawings done. So as soon as I know that the lease is going to be approved, I can go ahead and order the steel, get the drawings approved, and then it's another week, 5 weeks after that. So it's a 10-week delivery, so I know I'll get the money from the bank, but I would love to get 40% of that from the SBA as well. This is the first time I've really getting some help. We're a young company, so I've been having to pay cash, so this is, it's kind of exciting for me, but it's nervous too. But as soon as we can get an approval here, I can go ahead and order the drawings done.
All right. And I just realized how much sooner, I mean, we're going to be having next city council meeting just in a couple weeks. So I understand the quickness. So we can't really do it quicker. I was thinking of something else for next month. So, but I appreciate you. Thanks.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Could I have a motion then, please? Is your mic on? Thank you.
Sorry.
No problem.
I make a motion to send a consent agenda for the next council meeting, FIS company lease on land that's 30,000 square feet, is that right?
Yes.
For the purpose of constructing aircraft hangar for aircraft repair and storage. The term is July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2050. The rent amount is $550 a month, $6,600 annually for the first year thereafter. Rent will increase annually by CPI 3% or greater.
Okay,
Second.
thank you. I'm assuming too that motion includes all other terms and conditions of the lease.
Yes, all of the
I knew
terms.
that. Okay. All right, again, any other questions or concerns about the motion? All those in favor of putting FIS company on the consent agenda for the July 9th regular city council meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Consent agenda on the 9th. You're right, Counselor Foster, that comes pretty quickly. Okay. We have several, like I say, airport leases. So the next one is with Old Dog Brotherhood.
Okay, so this is for the Roswell chapter of the Old Dog Brotherhood. They lease Building 734 for the purpose of meetings and vehicle maintenance. It's 2484 square feet. The new rent amount is $258 monthly or $3,096 annually. This is a rent adjustment of 10%. The Roswell chapter has been here since April of 2011.
Thank you. And we have maps.
Yes, we do.
And I don't know where it is on here, but. Oh, yeah. Okay.
It's the one on the west side. There's 3.
Right. Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you. Any questions, concerns, comments? Okay, this is a renewal. Can I have a motion, please? Your turn. Counselor Peterson, do you mind? All right.
I'll make a motion to approve Old Dog Brotherhood lease agreement building 734, the RIAC, to be put on the consent agenda for the next city council meeting, with all terms and conditions.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to put Old Dog Brotherhood on the consent agenda for July 9th. Any other questions, concerns, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries, so that will be on consent. Look on page 13. Yeah. Let me just quickly make a comment. Our interim attorney has redesigned the abstract for these airport leases, and I truly appreciate the way you've done it. I think it's much easier to see these, so thank you guys for doing that. So our next one is lease with Michael Robacher.
Yes, this lease for Michael Robacher is an area of land and a container that's used for the purpose of storage of display fireworks. It's approximately 650 square feet. The new rent amount is $131.15 monthly or $1573.80 annually. The rent adjustment is 3%, and he's been a customer since June of 2009.
Okay. Any questions, comments on this? Rohrbacher? Did I say that right?
Robacher,
Robacher? Okay.
is that right?
Is going once? Okay. Can I have a motion then with, since there are no questions, on Michael Robacher? It's renewal.
Make a motion to send a consent agenda, Michael Robacher lease with all terms and conditions at the RIAC.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, good. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Okay, that will also be on the consent agenda. Now we have Carl Day.
Carl Day leases a T-hangar for the purpose of aircraft storage and maintenance. It is 1,002 square feet. This is located in Building 120, Spot 5. The new rent amount is $191 monthly or $2,292 annually. Rent adjustment is 3%, and Carl has been a customer since May of 2018.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments on this T-hangar rental renewal? Hearing none, can I have a motion then, please?
Make a motion to
Thank you.
send the consent agenda for the next meeting. Authorize Carl Day to renew his current lease agreement in T-hangar number 120, space 5, all terms and conditions.
Okay, do I have a second? Any other discussion, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of the Carl Day lease going on the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Consent agenda. E is Veterinary Outlet of New Mexico.
Veterinary Outlet of New Mexico leases a portion of Building 112A for the purpose of storage of soap, sanitizers, and detergents associated with the dairy industry. That's approximately 9,753 square feet. The new rent amount is $1,767.70, or annually $21,212.40. The rent adjustment is 10%. Veterinary's Outlet of New Mexico has been a customer since June of 2006.
Thank you. Questions? Motion?
Where's that located at? Sorry.
It's
This is off of the flight line, right? This is not near, it's not aeronautical, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? A motion? He's not looking at me, you are.
Make a motion to send a consent agenda for the next council meeting, portion of building number 112A consisting of 9,753 square feet located at the RIAC with all terms and conditions stated.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, appreciate that. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of putting Veterinary Outlet of New Mexico on the consent agenda signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Walker Aviation Museum Foundation.
Okay, the Walker Aviation Museum Foundation leases office space for the purpose of operating a museum associated with the former Walker Air Force Base. It's approximately 930 square feet inside the terminal. The new rent amount is $163 monthly or $1,956 annually. Rent adjustment is 3%. The Walker Aviation Museum Foundation has been a customer since July of 2010.
2010, yeah, wow. Okay, questions, comments? Motion?
Got a comment?
Yes,
question?
please. Councilor Peterson.
Are we gonna get these guys any parking out there? Have we worked on that?
I don't know that have they requested specific designated lots? No. So it hasn't come through our office that they've requested it.
Last time I went out there, I guess it was last year, there was no parking anywhere. Couldn't find.
We can talk to them about it and see what we might be able to do, especially when we get the newer parking lot built where we have a little more excess capacity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I have another question.
Okay.
So this is a 3% increase,
Yes.
okay, and they are a facility that definitely has been shut down because of the COVID, correct?
Yes.
And have they, I guess, said it was okay, or just because I know normally we do increase every year? but,
Correct.
Have they even initiated asking us not to increase, or?
No, to my knowledge, they haven't asked for any sort of deferments of rent.
Okay. Because, I mean, I'd be inclined to not, just because I understand it's hard for them to continue to raise funds and stuff with foot traffic down is definitely down. I'd say really the value of the space that they're renting is even lowered because we don't have the boardings that we've been having. I mean, and so, I mean, I understand it's not that much that we're charging them, but still, I'd be inclined to not raise it. I'd keep it the same just because of COVID. I mean, so I'm not sure 3% of 163 is about $5.
Yeah, it's probably like $159
Yeah.
before it's not.
Yeah.
$4 or $5, so, but just out of practice, I mean, that $4 a month is not gonna hurt us, but just the idea of the theory that they're not, the place they're renting isn't as valuable as it was last year at this time. I mean, that's.
Madam Chair, can you hear me?
Yes.
There she is, there he is.
Thank you.
This is Councilman Perry. I've been trying to get in for about 10 minutes now, but I finally have got myself in, so I've been watching and listening, so, over the
you.
last 5 minutes or so, I've been trying to figure this out, so I don't know where you are in the process, so I'll back up and be quiet and try to see where we are.
No, we appreciate you checking in. Thank you. We're on regular item 2F, Walker Aviation Museum Foundation, lease of their space in the terminal building.
And Councilor Perry,
Okay, thank you. Mhm.
And I was making the comment that since they're leasing a space that is probably not worth as much as it was last year because of because of COVID, and because we're wanting to encourage them to, that I'm not sure that, I mean, we've only increased it 3%, but just the theory of it to me would be not to increase it just because of the COVID-19 and less boardings and less people coming through their museum.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I believe I'm caught up somehow. Thank you.
Thank you. Any
Madam
other-
Chair, just for the record, Councilor Perry joined via GoToMeeting at 4:27.
Thank you. Ms. Gall.
Mr. Blythe, did you figure out how much? of the
It was
fine
158.
Yeah, 158.
158.
So, I mean, if no one would be opposed to that, I would keep it at 158 just for the principle of it.
So there's principle and then there's precedent.
Yes.
So that's kind of the slope we get on, because also we have other nonprofits that are out there, most likely Old Dogs, also a nonprofit as well.
But if you look at their square footage and what they do, I mean,
But within the terminal, there is another lease on here, if you look at Home Tech, which is also up for renewal, they have about a 10-foot by 8-foot space within the terminal, so about $10 a square foot is what they pay inside the terminal.
Can I ask a clarification? Are you proposing like a 1-year deferment of the 3%, or?
yeah, it's just a 1-year deferment of it for the Walker Aviation, just because it's, yeah, I mean, we're talking $60.
We're not opposed.
Yeah, we can change the language just to say that the 3% starts in year 2.
Yeah, that would be.
I think we can do that.
Well, okay, the lease as written is only for 1 year,
1 year.
All right.
which is typically what we've
We
been
do.
doing.
We can amend this lease and have it match the previous dollar amount.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Any comment? I guess I'm opposed to the change because of precedent, because we've worked so hard to come up with the idea, the way that we're doing leases out there, and so I think $60 a year is, I'm assuming, I don't know this, is doable by the foundation. They have not come to us asking for any
No.
reduction.
That's correct, but I do know that, I mean, I'm just saying they've been shut down because,
Sure.
because our governor's orders will not allow a museum to be open. So one of their primary ways of raising money is the foot traffic through to buying their merchandise or making donations. And so I know it's not a big thing, and I'm not even sure it's worth our time to speak this much time on it. The principle of it to me is the big thing. And the other business are businesses, and they have other ways of filing for government assistance because of our COVID. This is a nonprofit that I'm not sure they may have, but their foot traffic has definitely been cut down because they're not allowed to even be open.
Correct, it's at 0 and has been
Yeah.
for months.
So.
Yes. Scott?
I just wanted to pitch in a little bit extra too, just in terms of the trends that we're seeing at the airport. I know I mentioned it this morning, but Councilor Foster mentioned that we don't have a lot of traffic, and you're absolutely correct. It's down about 75 to 80%. But what we are seeing nationwide, and including Roswell, is that it's coming back much faster than what most economic folks anticipated that it would. So getting my crystal ball out, I would say by this time next year, we're probably close to normal again. So as we're looking at a lease that goes out a year, we're not really looking at the full year that their traffic is down, and I'm not opposed to your proposal at all. I just wanted to throw in that extra information.
Thank you very much.
Right, this lease would be effective August 1st.
Right. All right, any further discussion? Can I get a motion? Yours. Are you?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the Walker Aviation Museum Foundation lease of 930 square feet office space for the purpose of operating a museum associated with the former Walker Air Force Base for the term of August 1st, 2020 through July 31st, 2021, with the pass rent of $158 monthly with all other terms and conditions of the lease.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the Walker Aviation Museum Foundation lease of 930 square feet in the terminal. That is a difference, that's eliminating the 3% adjustment that is typically made. Any other discussion or comments? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
All right, I didn't vote with you, Counselor Perry, although I spoke. So the motion
I'm
passes.
sorry, what was that? I apologize.
Nothing, never mind. The motion carries, so the Walker Aviation Museum Foundation lease will go on the consent agenda with the continuing the current rent at $158 a month with no rent adjustment. Okay, thank you. Next one is the Harriet Partain lease.
Harriet Partain is the widow of David Partain, which was the leaseholder on this hangar, and it was used for the purpose of aircraft storage and maintenance. It's 1,175 square feet. The new rent is $199 monthly or $2,388 annually. Rent adjustment is 3%.
Thank you. Any questions on this lease? Okay. Could I get a motion then, please? All right, Counselor.
Make a motion to send a consent agenda. Harriet Partain lease, T hangar number 120, space 1, with all terms and conditions stated.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the Harriet Partain T hangar space lease with all of the terms and conditions as presented. Any further discussion, comments, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor then please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries. That will be on the consent agenda. Our last Air Center lease for this month is Home Tech Improvements.
Home Tech Improvements, they lease office space on the second floor of the terminal building for the use as a business office. It's approximately 100 square feet. The new rent amount is $103 monthly or $1,236 annually. The rent adjustment is 3%. Home Tech has been a customer since August of 2019.
Okay, thank you. Again, questions or comments? Hearing none, do I have a motion to put this on the consent agenda? Counselor Peterson, please.
Make a motion to send a consent agenda office space in building number 1, the terminal consisting of 100 square feet with Home Tech Improvements LLC with all terms and conditions stated.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Again, any other questions? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion with Home Tech going on the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you all very much. I'd like to say before Mark gets up from his seat that this is the last committee meeting we will see him in this position. So he's leaving on the 2nd, if I'm not mistaken, staying here in Roswell. And so I just want to say thank you for the work that you've done and appreciate the information you've been sharing and
My pleasure.
the care you've taken out at
And-
the Air Center.
And I'll probably come back up here one more time to talk about Aragon, but Scott's up next.
Oh. That's okay. Thank you. All right, let's go ahead and move on. The next item on the agenda is item 3, which is Roswell Air Center capital projects. I think we all are aware of the fact that we're asking each committee to bring to us their priorities, primarily for the ICIP list. This gives them an opportunity too, I think, to talk about some of their projects, Scott, so thank you. You want to go ahead?
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair. So the Air Center is a little bit different than some of the other departments, and I wanted to kind of just refresh everybody about the process that we go through every year to come up with our capital improvement projects, and it mostly involves the FAA and the AIP program and the state aviation, and then, of course, we get a piece of that in funding. But it typically starts about this time of year, and we start with what we call a CIP meeting with the FAA and with the state, and we take a look at what we're currently doing. We look and we basically shuffle the whole thing down and add on the new projects on the bottom, or I mean on the top. So at any rate, so what we've got going this year, we've expanded what we're doing because we got included into the military airport program last year, if you remember. So we got a $2 million grant for that, for vehicle parking at the airport, and we've been awarded that grant. We're going through the design phase now. Hopefully we'll begin construction sometime in the fall. We've gotten delayed a little bit because we're exploring whether or not we want to do a solar component on top of the covers on the parking. And so we've engaged a company to work with us on that, and we're having, solar's not as easy as just doing a parking lot, so we're having a few complications in getting some of the numbers that we need from Excel and from the solar company. But once that gets done, then we can move forward with the design and move forward with the construction project. Other projects that we've done this year, we did some rehabilitation of Taxiway Charlie, where we did crack seal and we did some oil on top of the whole taxiway. And then we also did the design work for the FY20 project that's coming up also this fall on Taxiway Alpha and Taxiway Juliet. That project was really somewhat fortunate for us the way that it worked out, because we had initially intended to do that with our entitlement money, which we had about $1.2 million to do that with. But we got awarded $1.2 million to do that project from the supplemental that we had also applied for in 2019. So we'll be moving forward with that, the core of that project on the supplemental. But as we've gone through the design phase, we've discovered that doing Taxiway Alpha and Taxiway Charlie, full reconstruction on both of them, and having to replace the lights on Alpha because of the full reconstruction to get into FAA design criteria, we're going to eat into our entitlements that we had set back, which, okay, that's what it was for. We set it back. We didn't want to use it for a third project because we didn't know what this would do, and we thought that it was a good idea to have some set back. So most likely we're going to use up all of that, so that both of those grants for 1.2 we will be using up on the Alpha and Juliet project coming up. For the FAA's FY20, so I don't want to get confused because of our FYs and theirs, they get confused sometimes. We have been awarded, or will be awarded, another MAP grant for approximately $3 million. That was on our CIP list as ramp improvement, so it covers the ramp from the general aviation side all the way around to pretty much to Hangar 85. Not all in one year, because we split it into two grants, so $3 million approximately on the first grant and approximately $3 million on the second grant for the FAA's FY21, which will begin October 1. So the FAA is looking at it that way as 2 grants, each in a row. They don't want to, they want to be able to commit to the whole project. So we have been verbally told that we're getting this year's, but we don't have an amount yet, and we should be getting those numbers within the next month or 2. So those are the FAA and state and city combined grants that we're doing this year. Looking forward, we will be looking at, for the next year, we'll be looking at doing a drainage study with FAA. The purpose of that is in part a preparation for a full reconstruction of runway 17. And while we're doing the drainage study, we know that some of the drainage that we have on the airport is old and probably sedimented up. So we're going to study and see what improvements we might need to make, a maintenance type of thing. Look at our drainage infrastructure and see that it still meets our needs, see if there's anything that needs to be changed. We know we have a few places where water tends to pond up a little bit, and in one place where it comes over a taxiway, if we have those rare 3 to 4 inch rains. But you all know that when we get them all at once. And so that's when that happens. So we want to be able to resolve those problems so that our pavement stays above water. So we'll incorporate that into that project. And as I said, the next phase of the ramp project will be our application for the MAP grant. The other thing that I want to mention that's on our CIP with the FAA, and it was on the master list, but I don't see it on this list on page 42, is our terminal building project, which if you look at the whole thing, we've got it at about $26 million, and we can phase that. So I would want to make that, because at this point that funding is only going to come from either FAA discretionary funds, which could be 5 to 10 years down the road, probably at least 5, or we could start going to the state for ICIP for that, which seems to be the best route to me. And I would look at a series of requests for that project and start with the design work, which is going to be about $2.5 million. If we wanted to do a design and a phase, I think we're looking at about $7 to $8 million. That would be my number 1 choice. My second choice, we have an area where AirSail right now is using for tear down over by Hangar 5866 and I'm sorry, 84 and 66, and we're changing that arrangement, and we're going to need to repair that ramp. So that would be my second request, and I believe that's actually the last one over here where it talks about some new construction for Hangar 84. It would be right in that area, but there's also a ramp rehabilitation on here for $6 million at the bottom of page 42. So it really would fit under either one of those, because that ramp reconstruction would be for the purpose of the area around Hangar 84, but it would also be part of the ramp, and I would request about $2 million out of that. And the reason I mentioned that separately from the ramp work that we're already getting from MAP, that covers the main part of the ramp, but it may not cover that reconstruction of that teardown pad. We have some demo work we need to do there, which adds to the cost of that. So it would be nice if we could separate that. That would be my number 2.
Okay. Appreciate that. Could you tell me again what your estimate for the total terminal is?
What I've got on the sheet that I'm looking at here is 26 million. It may come in less than that, but obviously the longer we wait, the higher it'll be.
Sure.
And it may not be that much. It depends on after the design how it comes out, but that's the conservative estimate of 26 million.
Okay. So 2.5 of that to
Yep.
do the initial design.
I think 2.5
Okay,
would do
thank
the design.
And then how much to repair the ramp?
The ramp would be about 2 million.
2. Okay. Any other questions
Yes,
of
Madam Chair.
Scott or his? Go ahead,
All right.
please.
And the need for the terminal is basically right now, if we have, well, when we get back running and when American Airlines gets back running, we have our Phoenix lights coming in, is it 3 times, when they were full, was it 3 times a week, or were they one daily? When Phoenix was running?
So, yeah, when Phoenix was running, you know, if we got 2 planes at a time, it was really full. And so that's where the need is right now. But as we seek to expand and we go after a Denver route and those type of things, it's only going to get worse.
Right, and that's what, with a Denver line coming in, the idea of us having more than 1 plane at a time
Yes.
can actually happen more frequently.
Yeah,
Correct.
it will.
Okay.
I mean, right now, it's typically, they're back-to-back, but they're about 30 minutes apart. And if we can play with scheduling with the Denver route, then we can achieve some of the same things. So we can probably do what we have to do. It's not the best thing to do, but we could probably do what we have to do if we're not building a terminal yet. The best thing would be able to work it all at once so that the airlines can work independently of each other, and it won't matter that there's 2 there or 3 there at the same time. But what we probably need we can do this in phases. So the way we would look at it would be to get the design work and do a first phase, which would extend the seating area out for the holding area now and leave the and again, I'll leave this to the architects too, since I'm not one, but that's the idea, is to extend the seating area out, make it larger so that you can get all those people in there. We have enough room for airplanes out on the ramp where it is. We may need to restripe it to position them differently, but we do have enough room to put them out there now. So you would enlarge that holding area, leave the checkpoint where it is until we could do a second phase and turn the checkpoint, make it larger, get in the scanners and the other equipment that TSA would like us to put in.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Stark? Okay, so, again, Mr. Stark is pretty much presenting as, his first choice, at least on, for the airport, is $2.5 million to design a new terminal and, or not, well,
In addition.
addition, sorry,
Yep.
thank you. Addition to the terminal. And the second would to be repair the ramp where Air Sail is currently tearing down. They will be off of that soon.
Yeah, near Hangar
So-
84.
Okay. Near Hangar 84, that's $2 million. Any other suggestions or comments? Do we need a motion on this? Maybe we should.
I think that, yes, that we're supposed to recommend 2 projects to the list, and it would be good for our clarity later on if we would reference the number on the sheet here, if we can.
Okay.
Which they're not on here.
Right.
So
then-
the terminal one is not on the sheet. The other one, just to use the sheet, I believe that would be number 20 for apron and ramp. So right now, we're showing that as part of a map, and quite honestly, it's all ramp, and it all needs some repair. That's just a different piece of it for a different reason. So I think that would
Okay.
fall under there.
And then the terminal we have to add to this
Yeah,
list.
I don't see it anywhere on here. It's on my other list that we had put together originally, and I'm not sure why it's not on this one.
Okay. So
Madam
do we
Chair,
add to this list at this point?
I believe, I don't see any reason why not. You can recommend
Okay.
whatever projects, I believe, that
Okay.
you want.
And Madam Chair,
Yes.
in number 2, even though it could fall under those, I would go ahead and make it item 28, just because it is more specific. It's between areas, or Hangar 84 and Hangar 66. So that's specific. The other ones are just kind of random.
More broad, yeah.
More broad.
So I'm sorry, you're suggesting add, okay, 20,
You want me to make the motion?
yeah, because
All right.
you said
Thank you.
28. We're putting 27 as the terminal.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, please, make a motion.
Madam Chair, I'd make a motion that we add the RAC capital projects list, recommendations to the master project list, and make number 27, the terminal building design phase at $2.5 million, and the number 2 would be number 28 on the ICIP list, project list, and it would be an area or ramp improvement area between Hangar 84 and 66 to repair the ramp, and it would be a $2 million estimate.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Counselor Peterson. Any discussion, questions on putting these, recommending these two items from the airport to the master ICIP list? All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Those two then will be the legal committee's entry to the list. Mr. Bless. We now have ergon discussion.
Okay, let me catch you up on the latest with the Aragon. A couple months back, we talked about this at Airport Advisory, and one of our members that's sitting with us today, Bud Kunkel, had noted some technical deficiencies within that, and we have hired a second opinion of that appraisal, and that appraiser did confirm some of the items that Mr. Kunkel had mentioned. So we are seeking a second appraisal on this, and we plan to bring this back at next legal after that appraisal is completed.
Thank you. Now, could I get some clarification from Mr. Kunkel? Did you tell me we don't necessarily have to pay someone to do this second appraisal? We can go back to the original appraiser, or did I get that all mixed up? And you'll have to come to the microphone. I appreciate it.
You do not have to get another appraisal, but what that means is the original appraiser has to be willing to do that.
Right.
And then someone has to decide, based on the product that you have from the original appraiser and what the reviewer said, somebody has to make a determination, is that person qualified
Right.
to go do or redo what he did? And so those are questions that who's ever managing that process
Okay.
needs to reach a conclusion on.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So I guess my point,
Yeah, Madam
Mr.
Chair.
Manager, yes, please.
In the conversation that we had with Aragon and the city in discussing the need for
Okay.
the second appraisal, I believe that all parties would be more supportive of having the appraisal done by this appraiser that confirmed of what the issues were with that.
Okay.
Rather than to go back to the current appraiser and get that renewed. I believe everybody was comfortable, both parties were comfortable with
Okay.
moving forward with this in that way, so, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. I'm sorry. I'm sure this is a staff decision, and so it's been made. But thank you, Mr. Kunkel. I appreciate that explanation as well. So we will go
Yep.
for a new appraisal.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, appreciate that. There's some other, yes, go ahead.
Thank you. I would ask that this committee use this opportunity to look at the agreement to make sure the concepts as presented, particularly the closing of streets, new streets, taking advantage of the fact this is already before the committee, and while the dollar amount may be subject to change, are the overall parameters acceptable, or will those need to be worked on so that we take advantage of this opportunity? So if you don't
I
mind,
agree.
Madam Chair.
No, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for that.
And the
If
parameters
you-
are the same that we had at the presentation 2 months ago. I believe it was April that Aragon presented, and we presented the terms of the deal.
Would you mind, Mr. Bleth, describing process to us? I think there, or at least
Sure.
I had a question about why this real property purchase agreement comes before the ordinance and the rest of the process. So could you explain that to us?
I would say that might be for legal counsel to describe that process.
Sure. So it kind of goes to the nature of real estate contracts and how they function. The purpose of the real estate contract is really to come to an agreement about what we're going to do to get the property closed. And so you create, when you sign the contract, you create an executory period pending closing, in which during that time is when everybody goes and does their due diligence to make sure that all the documents are in place and that that the land is exactly what they want and that we want to sell it to them and that we can, and that, there's no encumbrances that they didn't know about, and that, we can in fact sell it like we think we can. And so, and the agreement does specifically contemplate that if for some reason during that executory period pending closing, if they discover something they didn't realize, or we discover something, like, for example, there's an issue with passing an ordinance or there's a referendum or any of the things that can happen, that then that executory period then ends and we don't close. So it's specifically built as a time period where everybody kicks the tires and makes sure that we can do it. And so, and even though it may seem a little bit strange, it's not putting the cart before the horse. It actually, it's supposed to go that way.
It is the horse. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
That explains it to me. I don't know if anybody else had questions about that. Yes, Counselor Peterson.
But I had concerns with selling city property. I don't think we should do it. Also, I had concerns with the closing down of that road and that railroad crossing. All those people that live in that area, they're gonna have a hard time getting out. And if they were to add another road on Burn Street over to Hobson, I would be okay with that. And the other thing that I'm opposed to is that area is right next to all the residences that live there. And they're going to bring in all this, tanks, and that's probably going to smell. And it's probably going to affect all those people that live there. And those people that live there don't have the money to move. And, what are they supposed to do if they have problems? And that's all I want to say about that. And I want to ask the legal, what is a referendum petition? How many
So-
signatures? Thank you.
Right. There is a statute in the municipal code that specifically addresses the sale of property belonging to the municipality. And so what it says is that we have to, first of all, pass an ordinance that authorizes the sale, and then citizens can basically challenge the sale. They have to get a petition, and they have to get so many signatures, and I don't recall off the top of my head exactly how many, but so many signatures, and then that petition creates, if they get the right number of signatures, they give it to the city clerk, and then we have to either, at the next election or get a special election, actually have a referendum where everybody can come and vote, and if the citizens vote against it, the sale is off, and if they vote in favor of it, then we proceed. And so that's one of those steps that would be built into the period pending closing that we were just talking about, if it were to happen that way.
Could you give me the amount of signatures on that?
Yeah, I can check that and get back to you.
Well, you can email it to me.
I think
Oh,
it
sure.
might be
Thanks.
10% of how many people voted in the last general election. But don't quote me on that.
Okay, so we'll get an answer on that. Thank you. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
So now we are voting, or what's before us is actually the real estate purchase agreement, which is the first step in this process of creating the ability to do the due diligence. I shouldn't say ability, the need to do due diligence on eventually an ordinance. And
But I
Counselor
don't believe
Peterson-
that we're asking for any action at this time
We're not
because
going
we
to
want to go
today.
back and check
the
the
appraisal.
second appraisal, yes. So,
Right,
yeah.
thank you. But I thought we also had addressed Counselor Peterson's concern about the road, hadn't? We've had that discussion, or have we considered it? Is it a possibility, or,
I-
Mr. Nebb, please,
Yeah,
appreciate that.
There was no action that came off of that. Again, the map that is in your packet remains current with the expectations right now. There was talk about possibly trying to add another entrance exit off of Hobson Road
Yes.
into the neighborhood, but that has not been researched that far yet.
Do you need a motion, or approved motion from us to do so?
No, I think that we can continue on and look into
Okay.
that and see if there's any other options with
Okay.
that. I think the challenge comes with that whole north west side on the tracks there is a detention area. If you go down farther away from the crossing for the tracks, trying to find a location to come off of that road on the inside to Hobson Road gets a little bit of problematic. We did drive it and we did look at it, but we've not come up with any solution as of yet for
Okay.
that road.
Yeah, could we get that sort of answered in yes or no?
Try.
A definite maybe. Thank you.
And Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
So in order to call a referendum election on a sale ordinance, the petition has to be filed with the municipal clerk no later than 30 days after the adoption of the ordinance, and it shall contain the names, addresses, and signatures of at least 15% of the qualified electors of the municipality. And if you're wondering, that is section 3-54-1, subsection E.
15% of the qualified voters, not those who voted. Is that what I understood?
Yes.
Okay, that's a lot. That's a lot. Okay, so I think if we could do some research on burn to Hobson, I guess is where we are for now. And did you wanted to discuss more here on Ergon?
No, I'm here for the next
Why are
item.
you sitting there?
I'm here for the next item.
Okay, you're very fast. Thank you. All right, any further discussion or questions on Ergon? So we'll continue to work on gathering information there. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Now, our next topic is Thompson Consulting Services Agreement. Mr. Nebb, please.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, City Councilors. This is something that we've looked at a number of years in order to help our chances in the legislature, make sure that legislation and activity that happens in Santa Fe has a benefit back to Roswell and our community. So this year we did place $40,000 into the budget to get some legislative assistance that can help us with when we go up and we try to champion our cause through our legislators and everything. This would give us an agent that would stay closer to the time that the legislation's in session. So this is Mr. Thompson has provided the information. We do have a draft agreement within there. He also works for the city of Albuquerque and a few other nonprofits as such, and so he's got a well-seasoned background for this. The agreement would be for a one-year agreement, over a one-year agreement. It's actually only 10 months, $4,000 a month for a total of $40,000. I stand for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions or comments?
I've got a couple.
Go ahead, Counselor.
One of these, and I agree with this because, I mean, in the past years, we've had more inroads to the fourth floor than we do presently. And so having more communication with the state, and I think actually after this last few months with all the health department and the COVID, it shows that we have less because we're getting less information and we're having to wait till it comes out through the county. That getting more ways of communicating with Santa Fe is better than not. But one of the things that there in this, when I was reading through it, is there's no really drafts on how communication's going to flow. So what I'm wondering, I mean, is Mr. Thompson, how is he going to report to us? Is he going to, you know, be asked to report on a monthly basis, or is it going to be? And the other part I had is also communication. Mostly, this is because this is going to be agreement between you and him, you being our focal point. I kind of wanted to have some wording in there about how the communication was going to work.
Yes, Madam Chair, and
Please.
Councilor Foster and I did discuss this before we came to the meeting as well, and we want to make sure that the understanding is that this is an agent of the City Council, and that the directives that are done come through what the City Council would like to see happen, and then my job becomes more of a management of the agreement at that point in time. And I think we talked about putting some language in there, Mr. Patterson, in order to signify that, you know, essentially if one city councilor, one elected official contacts the individual, if there's a response that comes back, that response is disseminated amongst the group so that everybody can kind of stay in tune with what the actions and everything are. And so I don't believe there's any issue with adding that type of a language as far as that process as we walk through that. I think the effectiveness is to keep everybody abreast of what is happening, because I think that's where that communication is going to be so important.
And basically, that's what I was wanting. I mean,
Thank you.
I don't mind that Joe and, well, Joe and Joe talk,
Yes.
and, you know, and communicate. But if Judy, you asked him to do something, or asked of something, that when he emailed it back to all 11 of us, so that way we know what's going on.
12 of us.
Well, with Joe, yeah, Joe, 12 with including Joe, yes. So
Okay.
basically, that's where I want that kind of language added to it.
Can that be added to the agreement? I'm assuming that this is one Mr. Thompson.
Yeah,
proposed.
this is essentially the draft to start us off. It's a template. And so we can amend that language. You can talk with Mr. Thompson about what our expectations are as this thing moves forward. You know, I mean, the nature of this thing is it's $40,000 for the year. It is underneath the purchasing limits. But if this is truly going to be an agent of the city council, the elected officials, we really wanted the elected officials to weigh in on the value of this expectation. So,
Thank you. Any other comments or questions, concerns? I kind of question in the Exhibit A, the scope of work under service sites, why he could need a federal office. Because my understanding is he's only working for us with the state. Is that not true?
I believe it is. That's true. He is going to work with us in Santa Fe. The intent is not on the federal side. I'm assuming that's probably a portion of some of the other contracts, so kind of that catch-all
Right, I'm
language.
assuming you're right, because it does say that he'll work in various government offices in Santa Fe in other state. I don't know if that means throughout the state or in other states, municipal, county, or federal offices.
I think if our
So if we
goal
could
is to
just clean
utilize
this up.
him for Santa Fe and for keeping that connection to the legislature at that point in time,
Okay.
we can signify that in the agreement as
If
well,
we-
too.
Yeah, just clean that up a little bit. And I personally agree wholeheartedly with what Councilor Foster just said. I think it's really important that the information be disseminated to the governing body as well as the city manager. So thank you for that.
We'll work with both parties to make sure that that information is added before it comes to city council.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, Councilor Perry.
I would just say that I've spoken at length with both our city manager and the mayor about this, and I think that we can all agree, especially with our distance from Santa Fe, and with so much that happens in our legislative process. In the past, there have been councilors that have been very involved with going forth during the session to make sure that our voice is heard. I've traveled up with you, Councilor Stubbs, and with Councilor Foster and Councilor Henderson and many others through the years. We try to go up as often as we can. But a couple of things. Number one, just as critical to the legislation during the session is those subcommittees throughout the year that come through that maybe we miss or that aren't in our forefront. We don't see, and those are really critical to have that information on and to be having those conversations with them during those times, so that when we get to the session, things should run much smoother. I know in years past, there's always been the frustration of, why does this city get this? Why does this city get that? How do they get these things done? This is part of the process of how some of that goes. But I'll also say I did speak with both the manager and the mayor that I don't want this to take the place of us as the elected body from Roswell, of being able to going forth during the session. And it was agreed upon from both of them, absolutely not, that council, those that do have that passion and desire to go up there and to let our voices be heard, to work in unison with this, to allow for an even stronger voice. So I'm willing to give this the opportunity to see what this could possibly do for the city. I yield.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
And I concur with Councilor Perry, and one of the things that I think that one of the communication point about it is that as long as Mr. Thompson is doing his job during the committee meetings and stuff, he can utilize us. As long as communicating with us, he can pull us up in November, in September, in other than just the 60-day or the 30-day. And that's where the more there's communication and the strengths that we have and the people that we do know that across the state, then that way he can utilize all of us, and hopefully we can have a stronger presence in Santa Fe.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. We're asking for a few changes, or clarifications maybe. And I'm assuming we'd like it to go ahead and go to full council on July.
Correct.
So I think we would send it with no recommendation.
I think we can do that, and what we can do is we'll add the information to it as far as the communication piece as well, and we'll clarify that federal agency stuff. And then that's what we'll bring forward to you. There will be very limited other changes. You can either send it forward with the recommendation to that, but I would say no recommendation is fine. That at least it can go to city council, and then you guys can finish your conversation there.
Okay. Is that agreeable? So we don't need a motion then?
I think we just want the ability to move it forward, so
Right.
I would say take the motion to move it forward
Okay.
with no recommendation.
Okay. That's fine with me. If someone wants to make that motion, please.
Madam Chair, I'd make a motion that we send the Thompson Consulting Services agreement forward to City Council with no recommendation.
And to look at the changes or something like that?
Well, I think that'll give us the information, because it's going with no recommendation.
Okay.
We'll move those pieces around and fix those sections. Mr. Patterson, you're in agreement? Okay.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
Okay,
Okay.
good.
Madam Chair, if I may, or
Yes,
I
sir.
don't want to interrupt, there's in the middle of a motion, so if I could speak after we're done.
All right, well, I haven't called for a motion yet.
You have a motion.
Okay, all right.
I've called, I
And you actually have
haven't
a
called
second.
for a vote. I've called
Yes.
for a motion,
you
and we have a
right over
second.
here, so, yeah.
We do have a second, okay,
So
thank you.
now we're discussing.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
We're now discussing, and you may
Okay.
speak.
All right. Madam Chair, if I may, just for clarification, is the purpose of us sending it forward with no recommendation just because we do not have final documentation as to exactly what this contract will look like because of the changes?
That's my understanding, and I
That would
seen
be my
heads nod.
understanding as well, is that because we're not making an amendment to the agreement as written, we're going to work some language issues out. That is why it's going forward with no recommendation rather than with a recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion or comments, questions? Hearing none, then all those in favor of sending the agreement with Thompson, what is it? Thompson Consulting Services to full council with no recommendation, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. Okay, that will be the action then. This will be on the July 9th council committee, or council meeting with no recommendation. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's continue. We are now with, actually, we have 3 Main Street items on the agenda. The first is the agreement with the city itself. Are you speaking on this? I wonder if Ms. Jennings is here to speak on this.
She was, I thought. Oh, there she goes.
And here she is. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
I'm here to present the MOU agreement for Main Street Roswell. This is an agreement that we had last year with a few modifications. The biggest modification to this agreement is the removal of in-kind services, and that's primarily due to the COVID-19 budget situation. The other modification to this agreement is a more detailed approach to business development and retention in our downtown district, which includes the Great Block Grant Co-Lead opportunity for funding. And then you will also notice in the metrics, we moved from a monthly to a quarterly basis. Everything else within the agreement that we had last year is the same, or mostly the same.
Thank you.
And I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions or comments? I have.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. And I didn't realize this. The original agreement that we signed last year, actually in May, says that that agreement then may be renewed by the parties for 2 additional 2-year terms not to exceed a total of 4 years and shall not be effective unless memorialized in writing. So the agreement that is being put forth for us today has that same statement in it. So my question is, are we, I don't know that dissolving is the right word. Are we,
We are not renewing the previous agreement. We are entering into a whole new agreement.
That is correct.
okay,
And the primary reason for that is
those two.
when we met with Main Street Roswell, they are moving in a different direction that the city had asked them to look at with the budget concerns where we're at right now. We really want them to focus on our downtown business development district and not special events, especially with the orders that are currently in place with the state.
Okay, so I think nullify was the word I wanted. So we don't have to do anything to this one the two parties are agreeing not to renew this one.
Well, it's the other one, the previous agreement expires on its own terms unless it's renewed in writing by both
Okay,
parties.
that's-
So instead of renewing the old one, we're doing a whole new one.
So it automatically happens?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we didn't end up with two on the books, or thinking we may have two on the books, so that's good to know. Okay. Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, and I think it's important to at least mention that we're not changing the amount that we allocate to Main Street Roswell because the state agreement, which is up next, I think, requires the 40,000.
That is
But
correct.
as Ms. Jennings said, we are eliminating the in-kind and the event kind of support,
That is
which is
correct.
big. Does anyone else have any comments? I have a question. Mr. Morris is out there. I don't know if it needs him, but under recruitment services, we're talking about promote relocation to the downtown district for businesses and residents. Are we zoned to have residential downtown at this point, or does that create another motion that has to, or could eventually have to go in place?
Here you
I know a lot of communities are doing but I don't know. Thank you, sir.
Is the downtown district zoned for residential at this current time, Mr. Morris?
Thank you.
Currently, the commercial does not include residential specifically, except for like caretaker quarters, but it's something that we would definitely want to modify. We may actually have some projects that are being recommended or are going to be to put people in some of these buildings in the upper floors, and we'd be highly supportive of, I mean, staff would be, of something like that. At this time, it's just one of those things we need to do.
Okay, so we would certainly be, we could at least amend zoning if Main Street were to come up with a potential.
It would be very easy to do.
Great, that's what I wanted. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, anything else? Okay. Do I have a recommendation for council on the Main Street Roswell agreement, including scope of work and Matrix B and Exhibit B? I'm sorry, scope of work and Exhibit B. A, B. Exhibit A, scope of work, and Exhibit B, matrix. Thank you. Do I have a motion? I will move, I can do that, to recommend to full council for the July 9th City Council meeting the new Business Retention and Development Services Agreement between the City of Roswell and Main Street Roswell for a term of 1 year commencing July 1st, 2020, with the opportunity for parties to renew for two-year terms at the amount of $40,000 for the first year, and including all of the terms and conditions of the agreement, which includes Exhibit A and B.
Second.
Okay, I have motion and a second. Any discussion, clarification, questions?
Who was the second?
Counselor Peterson.
Thank you.
Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. This will go to council on July 9th with our recommendation to approve. Ms. Jennings, next we have the agreement between the city and New Mexico Main Street. It's an MOU.
So, do you want to do?
I'll just briefly say that this is a three-way agreement between the city, New Mexico Main Street, and Main Street Roswell. It's a form agreement that they give us that we are supposed to enter into. It enables Main Street Roswell to get support from the state organization. It's primarily, from our point of view, it commits us in generalized terms to support Main Street Roswell in its efforts, and in specific terms that we enter into an agreement with them, meaning Main Street Roswell, to give them financial support in the amount of that set forth $40,000, which is what the agreement we were just discussing and approved. And then the other thing that it requires us to do is to pass a resolution in support of Main Street Roswell, which is the item after this one. So, and that's mainly what it entails for us.
Right, thank you.
Parker took it all.
He did. And this is very standard operating procedures, and we've been signing this for years and years
Correct.
to keep our own program going.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Can I hear a motion, please?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion. I usually try not to by phone because it's just awkward, but just to keep things flowing,
You know
I'll
what,
make a motion that
Counselor
we...
Perry, let me interrupt you for a minute. Isn't it true that you cannot make a motion by phone?
If I can't, all the more better. I'm just trying to keep things
No,
going.
I don't know. I just thought that came up when we were talking about the Open Meetings Act resolution.
I'm not familiar with them not being able to make a motion. As far as I know, the Open
You know,
Meetings Act
you
just
know
says-
what? Just to keep things going, if someone else wants to make a motion, I am perfectly content with that.
I'm sorry, I seem to recall that, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
Madam
So-
Chair, I'll make a
Thank
motion
you,
for
Counselor
considering recommending
Foster.
to the City Council approval of the biennial MOU between the city, Main Street, Roswell, and the New Mexico Main Street.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second, and thank you for saying biennial. It is a 2-year agreement.
Do these go on
So-
consent or are these regular items?
What's that?
Are these consent or regular items? Sorry.
Yeah,
Yes, to be placed on the consent agenda.
this will be on consent.
Thank you.
Okay. So is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the agreement with New Mexico Main Street as a biennial MOU going on the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. Okay, that passes, so it will be on the consent agenda again in July. The third item dealing with Main Street is a resolution by the city of Roswell just supporting their activity. Counselor. You.
Ms.
I'm
Jennings,
sorry.
yes. So this is the
Ms.
last
Jennings.
piece of the previous 2 action items that you've taken. The resolution is requested by the New Mexico Main Street, just stating that the city of Roswell will continue to support their efforts and provide that financial funding of $40,000.
And it's pretty much boilerplate. You get it off their website and just put in the names.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, they're pretty thorough in that
Yes.
respect. Any other comments or questions? Can I have a motion, please, on the resolution to support as partners with, support our partnership with Main Street Roswell?
Madam Chair, I'd make a motion for considering recommending to the City Council approval of Resolution 20XX in support of Main Street, Roswell.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Second from Counselor Peterson. Any other discussion, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of putting the resolution in support of Main Street Roswell on the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Madam
you.
Chair, can I just say, I just noticed on the go-to meeting that Kathy Lay, the director of Main Street Roswell, had posted a question asking if the other item is also going to be on the consent agenda. So are we looking at all the items for Main Street Roswell for consent. I think that's a question she has.
Yes, I believe we are. Does anyone have any? I'm not sure if we said it. I mean, it doesn't have to, but it could. So are we in agreement that all of these go on consent? Yes. Thank you,
Yes,
Councilor
ma'am.
Perry. Thank you. Okay, next item number 9, we've all been waiting for, is our resolution concerning the airport authority. Yeah.
Sure.
Parker.
Thank you. This is a resolution that basically asks the city manager to kind of formulate a plan to move forward with kind of a proposal on what the next steps could be if the city wants to consider establishing an airport authority. That's set forth in statute that we can create a special economic district with our airport in conjunction with the county. And I think the city manager would like to say a little bit more about that.
I can add a little bit, Madam Chair, city councilors. I had met with essentially what you could construe as the EDC task force that we established by resolution back for the legislation. And when I met with them, what they would like to do is, of course, take this into the next level of conversations for that. And we had discussed the methods of how to do this. Because the work of the task force that helped champion the legislation through has finished their work. They're actually completed with that. So it's really, all right, here's all this information. Now it's passed the torch. Let's find a different way to do this. So I know that this resolution was worked on by that group out of the EDC, and there has been conversations with Councilor Stubbs and Councilor Perry on trying to make it fit where it's at, because we didn't enact it right away or talk about it right away because of a lot of different reasons. And so it comes forward now with you. What it does, it establishes some directives for the city manager and the county manager to come together, utilize an ad hoc committee, a group of individuals that can help with bits and pieces of putting together the actual city code and the information pertaining to how an authority would work for the city of Roswell and Chaves County. And I can answer any other questions with that as we can walk through that. But that's the intent of that resolution, is try to say, this is what we would like you to work on, because I will say that it's not going to be an easy task to put all that information together. We now have to answer all the what-if questions about how the services will behave and all of that through there. And I think in this resolution, we set February as being that date to complete. That gives us about 6 months to complete the work itself, to create that draft, and then at least 30 to 60 days discussing it with city council and committees as to, does this meet your expectations of how this would operate if we choose to move forward?
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
I've got a couple, but one of them is, so this is directing you to do this, correct? What, other than that, what is, I mean, we can't direct the county manager to meet with you, can we?
No, not, well, you could try.
Yeah.
No, Madam Chair, City Council, no. But it is, I think the intent of that, and you know, there have been informal conversations with all parties as well as to, between the county manager and the city manager, trying to pull this conversation together, because the Regional Air Center legislation, the act, actually establishes that the regional service has to be established by the city and the county. And so if there's any hiccups with that, it does direct me on our side as to how to move forward. It does not direct the county as to what direction they go.
So, I'm just kind of lost, because as far as I'm concerned, we pretty much can say, hey, Joe, go talk to Stan let's figure this out. Why do we have to get it to this formal action is what I'm trying to say. Is, I mean, we don't have, I mean, I know we don't do many resolutions and ordinances, and our July meeting's gonna be really short, so we can add some more stuff to it. I'm being very facetious, because it gets to that point where we're already 2 hours into this meeting, aren't we? And why are we creating more paperwork and more resolutions when basically this is something I think we could direct you to do without having a resolution?
Yeah, I think the resolution actually puts a little more credence into the system. I think that was the I think that was the question that came out of the EDC group that wanted us, the task force for lack of a better term right now. It was their desire to establish it in a more formal fashion as to the next step, just so that everybody has a clear understanding and direction as to what we're trying to accomplish, I think.
The one thing I do like is the time frame. I mean, it does say, but there again, with everything else that's going on and the budget and everything else, I mean, I hate putting something on your plate and saying, okay, you have to get it done by this time.
Right.
And so that's the one, I mean, I like to get more information, and so if there is a way that we can do this, I mean, I was for the pushing the group to get the EDC to pass, you know, get the legislation passed from Santa Fe. And the more information, the better, but it just gets to the point, why do we, a full resolution for this?
You know, Madam Chair and Councilor Foster, I think it's trying to figure out what type of an action the City Council has to take within the process. And again, you can direct me. You really have to direct as a group, or you're just asking for my compliance, I guess, otherwise. And so it doesn't matter to me how we go through that. And again, with the timeline, you know, if we get down close to that time, and it's like all this conversation with cost recovery and all these other things, if you see that, I have ultimate faith in the City Council that if you see that work has been being done and we may need a little extra time, I would assume that you would take action at that point in time and grant more time if it's needed. I think the intent of the timeline is to keep a sense of urgency on the issue to try to get it resolved. And because I think right now where we're at, we have a lot of information, but I don't know if the City Council has ever truly weighed in on whether or not we want to take the next leap or to go in a different direction. We've just never had that conversation. I think this will give you the information that you need in order to make those more formal decisions as to what the next steps are.
Thank you. You okay?
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, Councilor Perry.
Let me just say that I think that resolution is proper in this case, because I think that we've seen a situation. This is something that not everyone totally understands, and not sure that everyone could totally understand, because this is something totally new to us, especially in this part of the world. And there's a lot of questions out there. There's a lot of concerns from different folks. There's a lot of excitement from others. And I don't think that where we are now is coming to a resolve, if you would, or because there's no sense in one counselor pushing for something to move forward, another counselor saying, no, this shouldn't. I think there just needs to be directive given so that there's at least a consensus of where we are, and giving the time frame gives an expectation to where we stay on top of it and see what this could possibly potentially do. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Peterson, did you have anything at this point? Okay. Mr. Hitchcock, Mr. Kunkel, and I don't know if oh yeah, there you are. Mr. Armstrong are here, I know, to speak on this. So if you gentlemen would like to take a few moments, if you'll come to the microphone, please. Sure. Yep. So you see the green light.
we really reached this conclusion after working with the city manager. The city built an incredible document that explained all of the issues that have to be resolved, or expectations that the city council has a right to see how they're going to be dealt with. And it goes far beyond the capabilities that we have. It's going to take the city staff, they'll really be the ones that answer these questions on how to move this ahead. And we really recommend that Stan Riggs, or whoever his replacement will ultimately be, participate, because there's a lot of opportunity for other financial support that I don't think has really been considered. So we'd just like the right person, who's your very capable city manager, to guide that process, is our recommendation.
Thank you.
I think the EDC got the legislation through in record time once we got a different governor in, unfortunately. But we've done all we can do, and it's now really up to the city to guide that process.
Thank you, Mr. Hitchcock. Any questions of Mr. Hitchcock? Okay, thank you. Either one of you want? Okay. Mr. Kunkel?
Just to summarize, the resolution gets the city manager and the county manager together. What we had envisioned and has been talked about, correct me if I'm wrong, is providing a list of names, several names, and the city manager and the county manager would look at that list if they've got other names they want to propose. So to form a new group, it actually doesn't have anything to do with EDC anymore. It's citizens. EDC did their deal, and we got the legislation passed. So this is now citizens and business people that want to see this happen. So if we can get those folks together based on the group that the city manager and the county manager put together, and that is approved by the city council, then that group has authority to do what's going to be talked about, to go see if this is possible. If we don't have the authority from the city council, we're flailing about similar to what we've done for the last year, where we tried to get things done but couldn't. There's any number of things that are issues that we cannot have adequate information to provide back to the city council unless we have authority to obtain that information. And it likely is going to cost some money to do that. So that's why the county needs to be involved in this too. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Kunkel? Okay, thank you. Mr. Armstrong? No comment? Thank you for being here. Yeah, I know this is not intended to minimize the work that the task force did, and as you said, Mr. Hitchcock, record time in getting legislation signed to allow us to go to the next step, and I think this is, in my opinion, this is the best way to go to that next step, which is figuring out now, what do we need, what do we do, how do we do it? Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, can I have a motion on the resolution to evaluate and develop a framework to consider toward the establishment of an airport authority? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
Resolution 20-XX, resolution to evaluate and develop a framework to consider establishment of an airport authority.
And this would go, thank you, Mr. Perry, this would go on the consent agenda?
Yes.
It
consent
can
agenda.
always be pulled if
It's-
someone
it's
chooses to
capable
do
of it.
so. So it will go on the consent agenda with our recommendation to approve. Do I have, and Counselor Perry seconded. You did. Counselor Perry's coming from the skies.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't remember saying anything.
Oh, really? I thought you did, then it's in my head. Counselor Foster seconded the motion, thank you. All right, any further discussion to recommend this resolution on the consent agenda to be approved at the next council meeting? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Thank you.
you all, and thank you, gentlemen. All right, Mr. Morris is here now officially as we go to the ordinance dealing with home occupations. This is several times now we've seen it, but Mr. Morris has taken suggestions, and we have now another chance to look at this. And it begins on page 94 of our document.
Correct. And what we've done here, just for nomenclature purposes, there were things that were added, so it would have an underline, and then we decided to take them out, so it'll be struck out. So, but quickly going through and encapsulating what we talked about, we did modify on the bottom of page 94. There's a date in there, January 1st, 2010. We changed that. You see the double underline to 10 to be consistent with the other 2010 on the top of page 95. Just kind of use the same date over and over. So that was that first change. Coming back, and I think everything was okay on page 96 as it was. And everything was the same on page 98. Everything was the same as we agreed to on page 99. On page 100, we did strike 5 and 6 because we didn't understand why we added them to begin with. So took them out. So you see that's how it was underlined the first time, then we struck it out.
Can I interrupt you while
Yes,
we're
ma'am.
there? Okay, and I think it'd be better than going back, if that's okay.
Sure.
I'm looking at item 3 on that page 100. I don't know, I guess, I think I asked this question, I can't remember, I don't know if I even got an answer. I don't remember when or whom I even talked to about it, but once we have approved an ordinance and it's gone into city code, do we still refer to it by the ordinance number and it looks, and or the city code number?
I normally, once it's in there, I'm not sure it's necessarily the standard, but yeah, typically we would cite the section. But that ordinance does have a section number within that ordinance. And so the idea is just to give a reference to where that 40% came from as originally. So, but we could
Okay.
actually the easiest thing would be to just simply take out the required setback and just strike that whole sentence in there. It's not needed.
See, and I think where I'm coming from with some of this is I would prefer as a novice, if I were to need to look up any information on zoning, I would prefer to go to one document, which is the zoning code, and we have it separated, for people to see. But it seems to me that's better. So if it's okay with everyone, could we do that?
I would rather, I would say, getting on 3 there, accessory structures shall not occupy more than 40% of the required setback, and strike out
Okay.
rear yard. Ordinance 1902-75 amended March. Somebody was very energetic there. And just have it as the required setback
Okay, I
area.
appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, no, that's
You were-
good. Thank you.
And then what are we striking from that?
The rear yard ordinance 1902-75 amended March 14, 2019,
Okay, so we'd just say,
required setback. When you take that out, and that's,
okay, the required setback, and then nor have more floors, we'd leave the rest of it, just the actual,
just leave the
Just the
rest
reference.
there.
Okay.
I'm not sure how that even got in there, to be honest, because that's not how I normally would write, but
all right.
could have been a
Thank
late night.
The meaning, or the,
The
yeah.
guts.
Well, the other explanation, the floor
Right.
space, the height, that stuff I would want in there so
Yeah.
that they didn't have to go look that up and find it.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Okay, on page 101 at the bottom there, you'll see some new language that we added from out of there in accordance with Counselor Perry. In accordance with the City of Roswell zoning code, he wanted some additional, just where did this come from?
I'm sorry, let me ask a question, go back just a minute.
Sure.
To page 100, D, I guess it's C, under section 5, where we've added carports. I'm then going to C at the top of page 100, which is of section 5, what? Part of, I don't know, the next, is that, I guess, first of all, is that right? Section 5, exceptions to required yards, section 5, exemption to required yards, again, starting over. Is that the way you want to do that?
That's how we
Okay.
talk. And the
Okay.
idea is this allows certain kinds of structures. We have a building setback. This would allow a projection into that
Oh,
front
I see.
setback
Okay,
by 5
gotcha.
feet to accommodate porches and other things that are not part of the actual living area, architectural stuff. So that's really what that's intended for.
Okay,
Is the question, why it says section 5 exceptions to rear yards, and then again, section 5 exceptions to required yards? It looks like it's the
Okay.
same thing twice. I think that may be the question.
So I guess maybe it's that phrase after section
Oh.
5 exceptions that maybe need to say
I
two
see
different
what you're
things.
saying. It was doubled up for some reason. So the section 5 in the middle of page 100, take
Mm-hmm.
that completely out because it's covered again, you're right. And it was just in the type, in the enclosure, we added some additional stuff.
So, Madam Chair, which one are we keeping and which one are we deleting? That was a question I was going to have, but since we're in there, are we deleting the upper part and keeping the second portion?
We want to delete the section 5 that is unbolded in the middle of page 100 and keep the section 5 that is bolded towards the bottom of 100 and which continues on to the next page, 101.
Striking the first one, keeping the
Yes.
second one.
Strike the first one, keep the second one.
Then what do we do
Thank you for the
with
clarification.
A, B, C, D? They're moved down?
Yeah, we'll take care of they're the same. They'll be the same.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we got through 101.
Oh, excuse me.
No, go ahead.
Very last line on page 101, very last line. Interest in the property or have the notarized written consent and signature, I don't think, or signature.
Consent and signature.
Not or signature. Because the written consent should be signed, I guess, is where I'm going with that.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
On middle of, or towards the top, page 102, this was on how many licenses, occupation, or business licenses you could have at a structure. Just to be real clear, we put it in the positive. Each residential unit can obtain more than one business license for multiple allowable businesses on site. This is the ones where we talked about how there could be internet businesses and other kinds of things going on in one place. Then we came down around and we stopped on halfway down on page 103. And quite candidly, N and O are the guts of the, kind of where we started with this whole thing. This is how many vehicles can you have, work-related vehicles, at a home occupation, because that's the problem that we're having with certain kinds of businesses. Home occupations are things that are supposed to be either, and it's the different philosophies, some places don't allow any home occupations, none. We have it here to allow for some that are very innocuous to exist and operate in a residential area, because there's no impacts. It's the CPAs, it's, things like that. But we also have a allowable use for almost like an incubator type of business. It's the small contractor, it's the small landscaper, and the idea is that they're given some latitude to do something to grow their business, but at some point they're supposed to move. And once they're supposed to get big and move out of the house like a teenager. They're not supposed to stay, and that's what we're having issues with, is that they're staying. And we have places that have backhoes in their backyards and other things, and that's why we've tried to say, okay, at the very top, no oversized vehicles or construction-heavy equipment to be stored on site. In the easements, alleys, or rights-of-way adjacent or near the home on the property or in the easements. And then coming down, this is the one that we talked with planning and zoning probably 3 separate times on this.
Yeah.
And the question was, how many and of what type of vehicles for a home occupation? That's what we're talking about. And that's not even the other stuff we're talking about in the other committees with vehicles. And so we came down with only 2 one, no heavy equipment. So no backhoes, no construction equipment on site. That was up at H. And then N, only 2 regular-sized work vehicles or trailers are allowed to be parked on site in the driveway along with personal vehicles belonging to residents of the property and shall not block sidewalks. So, as we've talked about, every person the age of 16 and older has a vehicle in most homes in today's world. And then bring in a couple more vehicles, and now we've got things all over the place. And to accommodate overflow, we did come up with additional standard-sized work-related vehicles, trailers parked on site are required to have street access to the site and must be parked in a rear or side yard in the back or on the side with solid fencing, and are prohibited from alley access and shall not be parked in the streets, easements, alleys, or rights-of-way. So trying to create, for home occupation businesses, a limit on the number of vehicles that can be stored on a site for these type of business. And they're usually contractor or landscaper. That's usually our 2 big ones. Any questions or comments? And the deal is we're trying to balance the needs for local residents that are adjacent to these folks to have some tranquility, and also balance that against the need to allow for a business to kind of start to get bigger and better before, like I said, before they leave. That's our cutting the baby in half.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Counselor Perry.
may I just ask, I know that I had spoken with Mr. Morse about this, and I just need some clarification. I'm in very much agreement. I have seen some of this with especially construction of major equipment in backyards, and then you got the access from alley and tearing up the alley, which is not paved like the rest of everything. But my question is, and I think I'm understanding, but I just need clarification. This is dealing with minor and major home occupations. So, the fact that someone who is a school bus driver for the public school system through Pollard or one of the other groups that do that, some of these bus drivers in between during the day and even in the evenings will keep their buses there at their home. Some on the street in different ways as the ability, because of where their routes are compared to where the lots are for these buses. So is this going to prohibit them from being able to do so, or is it not part of any consideration or necessary for consideration because we're talking about home occupation?
And Councilor Perry, I would say, since it's not their business location, they're not asking for a business license within the residence. It's like a take-home vehicle for cops. I mean, it's incidental to the job. And I would not have a problem with saying, if you're out and as a school bus driver, take your vehicle home, park it in front of your own house, so you're not inconveniencing your neighbors. That's the only other issue, is some of these vehicles take up a lot of space on the frontage, and then it's like a Rubik's Cube. But the intent is not to prevent the bus driver from not being able to take their vehicle
Yes, sir.
home.
And I just need clarification from that one day, years from now, we'll have another city planner or something, or another city attorney. I just want to make sure that there's not going to be a different interpretation, that this is pretty solid, that we're dealing with home occupation and not people bringing vehicles home from other occupations. I just needed that clarification.
And as you said, it is located underneath the home occupation section versus the regular standard off-street parking section, which would be a different issue altogether. I think we're good to go.
Thank you. Yes. Okay.
Councilor Perry, you okay? Did I lose him?
Yes, sir. No problem. I'm sorry. I have to keep hitting the mute and unmute, so I'm ready to go on. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, on page 104.
Wait. Sorry.
Did you find those double commas?
No.
There are two commas in there somewhere.
Oh, that I didn't find.
Oh, you have to look.
I'm looking at the bigger picture. Let me just ask very quickly, up at the top of page 103I, where we're talking about no mobile or temporary food establishments, and you list push carts, ice cream trucks, and other similar uses. Food trucks are becoming so popular that I think maybe they should be listed there too. Or are they considered in one of these?
Actually, they're considered under their own section within the itinerant vendor provisions.
Oh, okay, so you don't
It's
feel the
another
need-
section altogether. To be a food vendor, you have to actually come to us and specify where you're going to put your vehicle. It has to be hard surface. It has to be handicap accessible. You have to have the access, the owner's approval, and a few other things, health department, health stuff.
Sure.
And so that is where their business is. And
But they
incidental-
don't leave it there
No,
24/7.
they'll bring it back to their house, but just like
So
the bus
that's-
driver, it's not operating, but their place of business. But you can't get, the idea is that you're not operating your food vendor in a residential area. That's the other
Right.
part of this thing.
Right, okay,
The food vendors operate in the commercial and industrial areas.
okay.
For the most part. Yeah, most
Okay.
catch-
And then I'm just wondering in O, no, I'm sorry, N, if it shouldn't, that there, and shall not block sidewalks or easements. I don't know if that needs to be there.
The easements with a vehicle, I would not be so concerned about because they can be moved.
Okay,
If we need to get to a water line and there's
Yes.
a vehicle there, we'll get to the water line, because it is movable. If it were a permanent structure, that's a whole different animal.
okay, okay.
But the
That's fine, I
sidewalks are
just-
ADA compliant, and we do have a big problem with that.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to section 4. Prohibited.
Okay, and coming on down, these are additional, we've just added more prohibited, the heavy construction equipment, oversized vehicles, trucking companies, storage of oversized trucks, and just some renumbering that was going on there. minor occupations.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Oh.
You're going faster than my brain, sorry.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I
Take-
want to go back to the whole idea of Section 4 prohibited home occupations. And I think what really disturbs me more than anything is that a lot of these vehicles come from the business's employees. So just asking at this point, you and Mr. Patterson, if we couldn't say something that we prohibit businesses with more than one employee who does not actually reside in the home.
Now, for minor, we'll get to that on the next page.
Is it in minor? Okay,
It's in
I'm
minor.
sorry.
The major is taken care of by limiting the vehicles that are there.
So I guess I'm wondering again, maybe cart and horse, is it easier to eliminate the number of employees, therefore eliminating the vehicles, or is it easier to eliminate the vehicles?
I'd rather deal with the vehicles because that's what's left behind. I mean,
Okay.
6 people coming in a car, but 6 vehicles is a problem.
Right,
I would rather deal with the vehicles.
okay,
And I can't prove the people. I mean, it's hard for the people because they're gone. We can take a
Okay.
picture of a car that's there or the cars
okay.
in terms of
Gotcha.
enforcement.
Okay, and then let me ask you, under 5, where we're prohibiting pet shops, veterinary hospitals, yada, yada, are pet groomers allowed?
Actually, yes, they are.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
With the
I just-
license and all the other stuff. I mean, they're trailered.
Okay. Not a pet shop or
And it'd
or
be,
kennel?
and we
Okay.
also have people that are hairdressers, mobile barbers.
Yeah.
The personal services kind of, we call them personal services.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that you had
Hilda's Hounds
looked
get
at
them.
that. Okay, thank you. Then, can I go to the new, on the next page, 104, the new 17, sale of firearms or ammunition of any kind? I'm just wondering if it shouldn't also include repair, and that may not be the right word, but whatever you do with
Gunsmithing?
firearms. What?
Gunsmith?
Maybe.
This is a, this point here is a very, it's like everywhere I go, it becomes an issue.
I'm sure.
There's people who have federal firearms licenses. I think you
Yes.
have one. And so we'll get calls from the ATF to verify the zoning on somebody who wants to get a license or is getting a renewal. And the question is this consistent with zoning? And we tell them every time, well, it's not, the sale of firearms is not a retail use that is specifically allowed in a residential district as under the home occupation.
Right.
So this is something that shows up everywhere.
Okay.
But it hasn't been an issue with us because most federal firearms licenses, how they operate, they're not working gun stores. A lot of times somebody will order, somebody goes to pick it up,
Yeah.
they leave. And so we haven't had any problems. It's like once a year we get a call from ATF
Okay.
on this.
So that's
Also,
not-
if I may say, there's some folks that have that they take trailers and they just travel the nation doing conventions and gun shows and that kind of thing that don't have people coming to the house to purchase.
Okay,
So we're fine with
just a question.
we're
Thank
fine
you.
with that.
All. Okay, thank you, go.
Now, under the minor, which is section 5 in the middle of page 104,
Right.
the one that we're talking about is B. And this is the one, it's a minor, and it basically says, only persons residing on the premise shall be allowed to conduct business activity on site of any minor home occupation.
But that doesn't say I can't have an employee that doesn't live there.
Well,
does
unless you're
it?
hiring your sister,
What?
unless you're hiring a family member that lives there. I wouldn't. But the idea here is if you're not, you know, if you're family, you're family. That's one thing. If you're living on site, that's the intent there.
So, activity on site of be employed in. You scratched the employed. I'm concerned about, are we running? Okay. I know you guys want a break. Sorry. Okay, so
We're
you
good?
don't think we have to say it's saying be allowed to conduct business. I guess I am as an employee, am conducting business.
Same thing.
That's what you're trying to, okay.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Just a little change at the bottom. For medical offices, personal use, we changed preferred scheduling and paperwork, but of course, nothing with consultations or anything like that. A lot of people we have a lot of medical people that do charting, that translating the notes and everything, and that we think is fine. Up on the next page, 105, this is still minor. Mobile repair services, on-site for the things that you're talking about, small appliances, computer, electronics, we didn't have a problem with that. No outside activity or storage. This one here, L, we added, small engine repairs, mobile service conducted at the customer site only, no on-site repairs, outside activity or storage. So, you know, you're taking care of somebody's lawnmower, so you go to their house, you fix their lawnmower, you leave, fix somebody's chainsaw, come back. Let's see, contractors, maintenance businesses, and these are the mobile washers and landscapers, trucking companies, may request a license for a home occupation for the purpose of scheduling, bookkeeping, and clerical activities only by immediate family members who reside on the property with strict compliance. And that again, we're just trying to say you can have these kind of operations for certain, but not actually the operations. It's more the bookkeeping stuff. And then finally, this is for our Uber drivers. The intent here is you can't be a taxi company operating in and out of there, but I mean, an Uber, you're using your own kind of vehicle, and it's the thing that's coming around now. So here again, trying to say, okay, if you're in the transport business, you're allowed to, but you can't be parking on the sidewalk, and no oversized vehicles again, but that excludes limos, things like that. So that would be an allowable business, so long as they comply with the provisions that are located within. And last for the standard for major home occupations, and there's in section C, enclosed, we want to make sure, enclosed structures, except with the exception of childcare, outdoor play areas, you know, be real careful. B is actually another one of those. No more than one employee plus the inhabitants of the residence shall be on premise at any one time to conduct the major home occupation. There's a limitation on the floor space, students, and you'll note that they can come to Planning and Zoning Commission to ask for some deviations on that. Daycare, it's still the same standards.
I think group daycare homes for children shall be limited to more than, I think it should be no more than.
Well, it's between 6 and 12.
Oh, to
And then
more
up to
than
12.
6 and up to 12, okay.
Between
I would just say to 6, I don't know, okay, it's all right, never mind.
Because after 12,
Right.
there's actually another category
Yeah.
in the zoning code where it's actually a conditional use permit.
Right.
For the really bigger ones.
Yeah, I remember that. Okay, never mind. E.
And on wrapping up, we struck on the page of top of page 6, 106,
Right.
the small appliance, computer, and small electronic repair, it's covered, and then the small engine repair.
Okay,
And I stand for any questions.
thank you. We need to note, excuse me, for the record, that Counselor Peterson left at 6:12. What? 6:16. So we still have our quorum with the three of us here. I'm sorry I have not put in a break, but I wanted to get through this. Any questions, comments of Mr. Morris to the incredible amount of work that he has put in on the home occupation? Plus, what's it? Well, both. The, whatever. What's the other? I'm sorry, I'm getting rummy. I guess it is. Okay.
This ordinance.
This ordinance, which is part of the zoning code.
I do have the one question. On 105E, when y'all were just talking, group daycare homes for children shall be limited to more than 6. So if you have 4, you can't have one?
No, you have a minor.
It's a minor one?
It's a minor. 5 or less is a minor. 6 becomes a major, going up to 12, and then 13 upwards, it becomes a conditional use, not just a special use permit.
Okay, all right. Well, then that's where I was trying to get that feeling.
Okay, Counselor Perry, are you still with us?
I am here.
Yay. Okay. Are there any questions or comments or concerns about what we have in front of us today in the home occupation realm of zoning? Are we prepared to send this ordinance to council? Sounds like maybe we are. If so, can I get a motion?
Madam Chair,
Thank you. Yes.
I'd like to make a
Counselor
motion for consider recommending approval to advertise and hold a public hearing on proposed ordinance 20XX to modify Articles 52, Building and Performance Standards, and Article 62, Home Occupations of the Zoning Code, to be placed on the regular agenda for the July meeting.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Counselor Perry. Is there any further discussion, comments, concerns, questions? All right, hearing none, all those in favor then, please, of placing the home occupation changes to modify Article 52 and Article 62 on the, it's on the regular agenda for the July 9th, 2020 council meeting to advertise and hold a public hearing. All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Morris. Very much appreciate that. Mrs. Jennings, do we want to take a break or can we go?
Yep. I
Now,
guess let's,
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay. Ms. Mervine is here to talk to us. Let's go ahead then. On the revisions to the lodger's tax ordinance, which starts on page 107. Yes, thank you. 108 is the actual starts the red line. Thank you. Appreciate it, Stephanie.
She's up there, but I'll guide you through this for a little bit. So you'll see in your packet, there's 2 versions. I got a clean copy and a red line for your reference. And I got some slides to help me because I want to take a little bit of a deep dive into it. I hope you'll bear with me. I know it's late, but it's
necessary.
It's necessary, right? So for background, there were 2 sets of changes that the legislature did. One in 2019, and that was SB 106, and then one this year, and that was HB 117. In both cases, what they did was they eliminated or restricted exemptions to lodger's tax. And so the first one was effective at the beginning of the year, and the second one is effective on July 1. We're going to try and take both sets of changes in one go rather than take it piecemeal. And that's the idea here. So I'm going to go kind of, first we'll look at the two statutes that were changed, and then we'll go and look at our ordinance, if that's okay. So in the first one, SB 106, there was really only one change, and what they did was they struck subsection G of the exemptions to lodger's tax. And what that is the one, it's an exemption from having to pay lodger's tax if you as the vendor, the person giving the lodgings, have less than 3 units that you give out for lodging. And that has been in there forever, and they struck it completely, which means that your Airbnbs with 1 room or 2 rooms that they do, now all of that was going to fall under lodger's tax, where previously it did not. And so SB 106 is real quick, that's all it is. That's all it is struck the one line. The next one is a little more complicated. So first they changed the definition of taxable premises. And what they did was, whereas before there was like a whole laundry list of different things, hotels, motels, lodgings, parks, mobile, like they gave this whole long list. Now it just says hotels, motels, or other lodgings that are not your primary residence. And that's the main change that they did to the taxable premises. The taxable premises being what we can tax. And so they changed that. And then the next thing they did was they added a new concept, a new term, and that's temporary lodgings. And what temporary lodgings are is when you go somewhere and you stay not at your primary residence and you're going there to be near your employment or job. Okay, and so that was the other thing that they did in the definition section. They created a new concept, temporary lodgings. And so in the exemptions, one of the exemptions is that if you stay somewhere for more than 30 days, you're no longer subject to lodger's tax. That's how it was originally written. And now what they do is they say, unless those premises are temporary lodgings. Temporary lodgings being, as we just talked about, when you go somewhere for the purpose of being near your job. So, I mean, the example is really easy for me because I literally did this. When I first took this job, I was living in El Paso, and I came up here, and I was staying at an Airbnb for something like 10 weeks. And that, at the time, would not have been subject to lodger's tax. But under this, it now would, because I was here more than 31 days for the purpose of being near my job. So, and the interesting thing what they do is, as you know, lodger's tax can only be used for certain purposes, right? But what they've done is they add a new subsection that says tax collected after the 30th day may be used for any municipality purpose. So if for these temporary lodgings, for people who are staying more than 30 days, for that 31st day and beyond, that lodger's tax is not subject to all those restrictions. It can be used for any municipality purpose, as long as those purposes are spelled out in the ordinance. So we would have to say that this temporary lodgings income is going to be used for XYZ purposes, but they don't have to be the ones that are normally set out in the statute for, advertising and the things that are there. Okay, so those are the changes that the legislature made in the 2 rounds. So now I want to look at what we're proposing to do. The first thing we're doing is we're just literally taking exactly what they did in the definition section, and we're changing our definition of taxable premises to a motel, hotel, or other premises used for lodging that is not the vendee's household or primary residence, right? And that is literally verbatim what the legislature did. And then same thing, we're adding a new definition, temporary lodgings, meaning lodgings for the purpose of housing a vendee within proximity of the vendee's employment or job location. So that's just right out of the new legislative changes. Then we've again changed under the exemption section. there's an exemption for people who stay for a period of at least 30 consecutive days unless those premises are temporary lodgings. We did the exact same thing. So now we're doing the same thing, temporary lodgings. If you're there to be near your job and you're there for more than 31 days, now that is subject to our lodger's tax, okay? And then the other thing we did in that section is just like in the first one, we struck that entire section about less than 3 units, right? And so that is now eliminated just like in the first, the SB 106. So we're taking both of those in one go. Here's where we get a little bit interesting. So this is kind of uncharted territory because this is new, but you'll recall that the temporary lodgings, the beyond 31 days and beyond, can be used for any municipality purpose as long as it is spelled out in the ordinance that calls for it. And so this is where we're kind of making it up a little bit. This is new. I haven't seen another city that's doing it yet. If somebody else is, cool. Like, I'd like to look at it, but right now I haven't seen it. So what I've put here is the proceeds from the occupancy tax that are collected based on the 31st day and subsequent days of vendee, rents, lodgings, and taxable premises may be applied by the city to any of the following uses. 1, construction, maintenance, and renovation of city-owned tourist attractions and related facilities, including sports tourism. 2, financial support for public safety and community development efforts. And 3, promotion of economic development-related projects. Now, those are just a proposal. We can use this stuff for any municipality purpose. Those are the ideas that we had. And so that's kind of open for discussion, I think, but that's what we had. And then lastly, the last change I want to highlight is, so the way that lodger's tax works is that it's the vendor has to report back to us. They pay us the lodger's tax that they've collected, and they report back to us, here's how we collected it, here's what it is. They give us a report. And because realistically, how are we going to know, right? And so the only way I can think of that we would do this is to put it back on them and say, you guys are the ones collecting this stuff. You know who you've got. So if you've got somebody that's here on the 31st day and beyond to be near their job, you need to segregate that out in your report and say X amount came from this type of lodgings, because otherwise we'll never know. And the only way that we would know is if they tell us, and then we can take that money out and say this money is for any municipality purpose that we've specified in our ordinance. And so under that section, I've added a section here that says that in the reporting that it should include the amount of tax deriving from the 31st and subsequent days of vendee, rents, lodgings, and taxable premises. So that's part of their reporting. And then we know how much of it we can use for these other purposes. So those are the changes that we've proposed. And Stephanie, I think, is here to help us understand a little bit more of the practicalities as opposed to the ivory tower legalities of it.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So for the 30-night stays, that's a percentage of, what we did an analysis on when I first came on board of 2019. It's approximately 20 to 25% for 30-plus days in our city, which it gives us a lot of freedom, like Parker had mentioned, of how we could use it. I think the main purpose is going to be how we know, but we do an audit, so there are avenues we could pursue and kind of structure it so that the audit would specifically speak to that if we needed to. But it's definitely moving forward with collections.
Yes,
one-
Councilor Foster.
It still boggles me sometimes. So if someone's staying here for more than 30 days on vacation, then that
would not be-
31st day, it's not.
Yes, sir, that is how the legislature has given this to us. I think if I understand from reading the reports, the legislature does do reports on some of the idea was to capture like people who come for oil and gas and
Right.
things like that. That was
We have contractors and oil and gas contractors that rent out whole floors and keep them rented for the whole year, because that way they may stay empty, a week out of the month. But but they keep them rented because that way they don't have to pay the lodger's tax and the bed fee. And so, but
At least with regard to lodger's tax, this would address that situation, I believe.
But the idea that if they're on vacation for 60 days, that they don't have to pay it for the last 30 days of
They
it.
would have to be pretty big fans of Roswell to
Yes,
come here for 60
exactly.
days just to see the highlights.
Yes.
Although I welcome them, please do.
Yes, please do. Okay. Well, the concept to me is like, I don't understand why they left that in there. Why didn't they just, but oh well, we can't, I
I
can't
agree, and
second guess
it
them.
would probably be easier to administer if we just said everyone after 31 days,
Yes.
because we wouldn't have to worry about the purpose, but this is what we've been given.
Yes, okay. All right.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Foster. I have a few things. Counselor Perry, do you have any questions or comments?
Not currently. I'll listen.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm assuming that everything that is black is our current ordinance.
Yes,
in
ma'am.
Chapter 23.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm just wondering about some of that language while we're at it.
Much of it is the same as the statute, although I don't know exactly how verbatim it is, but my recollection is that much of it is taken very similar language to the statute. I'll say that.
Okay. And that's very interesting to me because on the first page of the ordinance, section 23-2 definitions, I just really get crazy over this. The first one, city manager means the city manager.
That one may be ours, I'm not sure.
I mean, and I at this point don't have a lot of good suggestions, but those things make me crazy. And I'm thinking that, again, in that line where it says city manager means the city manager or the clerk treasurer of the city, that, you know, a lot of cities don't have a manager. They do have to have a clerk treasurer. And in our case, we have a city manager, so I would like to just strike or the clerk treasurer of the city is what I'd like to do while we're at it. So it says, and again, I don't know how to, I don't have a suggestion for city manager as a city manager, but I can think about it.
I mean,
Madam Chair, I agree with you, just pulling that current language that's there out, but leaving the other because the city manager can also, in their absence, direct someone else
Right.
to carry their role at the time. So I think that that would be appropriate, just pulling out what you just suggested.
Thank you. But again, I don't have a better word for city manager means the city manager.
I don't know if you need means. You could say something like city manager includes city manager and any other representative designated by the manager. It might sound a little less weird, I don't know.
Oh, city manager includes
Yes.
the city manager or other representative designated. That's fine with me.
Okay, we could do that.
Okay. And then we go down to lodging and lodgings, and I understand what it's trying to say, but those two words are interchangeable to me if you're talking about singular or plural, and I just,
That one I have a suspicion comes from the statute. If you'll give me a moment, I can try.
you know,
and pull it
I
up
hate to
real quick.
belabor this. Can we discuss this month and bring it up again next month?
If you would like to, yeah.
I mean, considering the time, is there any urgency with you guys other than the collection of it?
No, the first set of changes have been sitting since last year, so I mean.
Yes.
I think it goes into effect July 1st, though.
The second set of changes, right. So the second set would go into effect July 1. But yeah, it just goes to how fast can we start collecting type of question.
Yes, and I hate to slow that process down, but it just seems to me this, at least in my head, needs a little more looking at. Again, the lodging and lodgings. I mean, I understand what they've done there again. Occupancy tax, means the tax on lodging authorized by this article. It's actually by state statute and this article, I think. Because they're going to supersede us if and when they change it before we do. Then on page 109, after the red line, we're still in definitions. Tourist means a person who traveled for the purpose of business, pleasure, or culture, period. And scratch out, to a municipality or county imposing an occupancy tax. They're still a tourist if they go to Eunice that has no hotel, or didn't last time I was there have hotels, so I would just scratch that language after culture. And then, I don't think so. You have to leave? Wait. Where are we with solid waste? We still have that.
If you would like to wait another month on solid waste, I think we can live with it.
Can we
The
wait
main
on
thing
that?
is that I think it's deleting a lot of fees that I know that the city manager
Right.
would like to move
That's
that
the
over
ma-
to resolution.
And
So I'm
our
not sure.
agreement for collections is not valid after July 1st. So we'd have to do it again.
Okay. We can't continue with only 2 members.
Right.
So that's my concern.
My statement here is I do have another place I need to be.
Sure.
And if we're going to just discuss how we're changing an ordinance that should have probably been done prior to this meeting, I'm not going to sit here and listen to comma changes and stuff when it could have been done prior to this.
It can't
I have
be
other
because
places.
I didn't see it until it's published, so I can't
This
make
was
any
published
changes.
I've had this for over a week.
I
And
know,
so
but I'm
that's one of
saying
those
I
things.
can't make changes after it's published until I'm in a
that's all right.
public meeting. So, I understand. So, so my question then is, can we not act on lodger's tax and the revising of the solid waste ordinance? Is that okay?
I believe.
I think we have to.
Oh, yeah, okay, we're okay on
Okay.
solid waste.
Okay, so,
I mean, I don't
I
want
think-
you to pass something that you're not ready for, so if you've got additional changes, and I think if you want to look at it, we have to compare the statutes to the definitions and make sure that any changes we make are still consistent with law.
But does our current lodger's tax, Stephanie, you were saying we can't collect after, or we can't
We have
collect,
to go into a new agreement after the 1st of July. So they will reevaluate the agreement.
well,
but
that's,
if
we're already going to have a pause anyway, because this won't be adopted until the July 9th. or
Well, and then we're
July-
just
Exactly.
advertising, so it's not going to go into effect
Yeah.
until August anyway.
Yeah. So we're already losing capacity to collect lodger's tax in July,
6
is that what we're
months,
saying?
Yeah, since,
So, yeah, I mean, it's a, well, we've, yeah, let's get you on the record there.
Sorry. This was an action item last month, and unfortunately, we lost quorum, so then we brought it back again this month. So we have lost collections for the first part, starting as of January. The second part would go into effect July 1st, which we do have a contract ready in place that would start us on August 1st. If we don't pass it at July's council, then we lose the other month for the first part of it, as well as the first month for the second part of it, and then would have to enter into a new agreement for the collections portion of the second part.
And this is total lodger's tax or just for the Airbnbs and just for the after 30 days?
The Airbnbs and after 30 days.
So, well,
So
if
I'm-
we're not going to act on it,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
but if we're not acting on it today is what I'm hearing.
Not if we don't have a quorum.
No, you were saying we weren't acting on it today
No.
because you weren't ready for the
Oh.
language. Yes, that's what you were saying.
Okay. I hate to make these, let's see. Counselor Perry, we're concurring.
That's fine.
That's my problem. It's current ordinance you're wanting to change, and that has been since whenever it was enacted. So if that's what you wanted to change, you had that. You had the current ordinance. That's one of those things you wanted to prepare since then.
Okay. That's not what's under question, I guess.
It's not, because let's go back to this. If we're going to spend time on it, you said you don't like lodging and lodges. That's current ordinance. That could have been already up for discussion. He could have already looked it up if we'd have known, if we were coming into this committee.
Sure, I could have.
Okay? So
I mean, I don't read the whole code book, but sure, I could have.
well, but I've had this for over a week.
So have I.
Right, so if those were things you were,
Not once it's published. I can't make changes until I'm in a public
but you could have brought
meeting.
that to us, and he could have had those questions ready. as
I
we
have
came
my
into this
questions
meeting.
ready.
Yeah, you
Let's
could-
not belabor this, folks.
Okay.
I think we're all tired.
Yes.
So if we all concur that these two ordinances can be put off, we're not eliminating all of lodgers' tax. That continues. It's just the addition that we could be collecting 1st of July.
Madam Chair, I would recommend that as well, too. We do have 2 city council meetings in July, so we could hold a special legal committee meeting between now and then possibly throw this on as one of the topics for that
Thank you.
second meeting of city council.
Do you know,
We
that's
might be able to
interesting, because
catch up.
that city council meeting is after the legal committee in July, on that same day.
Correct.
So we could maybe bump up legal.
Yeah, I'd
That's
either recommend bumping up or possibly adding just another extra little time to get together for a couple
Okay.
other items, so.
Thank you. Good suggestion. Okay, are we all right with that? So we will leave this where it is and come back to a agreed-upon legal committee meeting in July.
Thank you.
Okay?
Yep.
All right. Thank you all. Since we're no longer a quorum, I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 6:46. Thank you all so much.
6:46.
Yes.
Okay.
Safe travels, Counselor Perry.
Thank you. Y'all have a blessed day.